a stock exchange here in Amsterdam. And she's the one that had a really good business case running for herself. It's called, Gold Republic. She built a system in Gold Republic to trade gold, and she figured, hey, wait a second, if I can trade so easily ownership of gold on this system, I probably can use it as an exchange as well. And she kicked that off with an exchange, which actually, to my opinion, is a successful exchange, and first time someone actually managed to successfully push an exchange, a new exchange, into a society, instead of being the set order that has been around for the last couple of 100 years. So big hand for Marleen, who's gonna join us for the interviews. Thank you, Marleen. And then we have Alex Bous, a background in technology, and absolutely not his first startups or first initiatives to do the 2Tokens here. He's the driving force behind 2Tokens, out of his interest in the blockchain industry, out of his wide knowledge group and network in it, and of all of his technical background and experience. If anybody heard of a company, Bous Datacom, then that would be Alex here. You will hear the company every now and again coming by. There's a bunch of other ones. If you want to know more, please ask him. He knows, and he likes to talk about it. And I would like to welcome you, Alex, for the radio show. And for the interview we're going to do, give a big hand for Alex. Thank you. And the first interview we're now gonna go into is an interview with, as I said, Bhairav Patel, Thomas Fleischman, and Eric Schnuckel. And I'll give a short introduction. I still have 3 minutes left. I mean, we have 10 over. I had to fill 10 minutes. If you speak too quickly, then you can say a lot. Here we go. Where did I write it down? Yes. I'll first introduce Bhairav Patel, who is the CEO of Defactor.com, building a global community of investors and businesses who know how to put capital at work. That was the first start of it. I'm very happy that he can join in on this first conversation on the invoice token. For everybody, an invoice token, I hope people understand it, but if you don't know what the invoice token is and what the group is, please ask questions. Please inform yourself and ask questions. Then we have Thomas Fleischman, who is into collaborative finance professor. It describes liquidity saving through obligation clearing and mutual credit, an effective monetary innovation for SMEs in times of crisis. And it was explained to me as a sort of an exchange of invoices. I sent you an invoice, you got my product, and then later on I got your product, and you sent me an invoice, and we'll eventually nullify these invoices against each other. Then we have Eric Schnuckel, who is the captain of the group, of the invoice token group, and providing enterprises with a suite of tools and services to enable the rapid development of Web3 products and concepts in the EU compliant and enterprise grade. I think that was a very interesting one. I would like everybody that's here to come forward, and that we can start the interview here. And I will give the mic back to you, Alex.
You can keep that microphone because we're going to have questions.
We have more than enough over here. Oh yeah, and I'll walk around with this microphone. If anybody has a question, I'm happy to give it to you.
Well, Alex, our first radio show. I always wanted to have my own radio show.
It seems to me that you have a lot of radio shows. You just got back from Dubai. You have your own television station, I think.
But doing this together with you is a whole nother level, I think.
Yeah.
For everybody else, I think it's important that you keep the mic quite close to your mouth. Maybe have like a fist between the mic and yourself. What are we going to do today?
Well, you know, when we started this in 2019, it was all about democratizing finance, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what we did with Next Gen Capital. That's what you do with an exchange. That's what ABN AMRO said, let's tokenize invoices. And I said, tokenize what?
Tokenize invoices, yes, that's what they said.
Yeah. So I think, if anything, I think there's something of a recession coming on, and I think a lot of small and medium enterprises are having trouble finding financing. So this is the right time
Yeah.
to
Well,
present new
I
solutions.
think that's great, right? When things get tough, then people start innovating. Is that what you also see over here, guys? Like is it now speeding up? Is the demand or the request for invoice tokens or invoice financing picking up?
I think we already started with this project a long, long time ago when there was no recession in sight, and we thought to make the process more efficient. And that's basically what we try to do within the invoice token working group, is first create a standard of what an invoice is and how you can tokenize it, and then bring it into a system. And Baraf did that with the factor, bringing that into a system, and Thomas has another approach on how to do that, and I think that's the nice things of what we try to achieve right now. And what the market will do,
Okay, Berat. Like, if you would summarize what you do in one sentence, how?
So what de facto does, it allows traditional businesses to access liquidity that sits on the DeFi space. So the
One fist.
He's so.
Yeah, well, otherwise we're not going to hear him.
That's true.
Let me move further, closer. Would you like me to repeat that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. So what de facto does is it allows traditional businesses to access finance through liquidity pools that are sitting on the DeFi space on the blockchain.
Okay. And how does it differ from what you do?
Yeah, the difference we make is that we try to make communities independent, not reliant on the outside liquidity sources. So we are trying to make the use of the knowledge of the network that is created within the community, and to create liquidity outside of this network. So this is what we are doing, and we are calling this collaborative finance.
Nice.
and you see it's borderless. Thomas from Slovenia, and Baraf is from Croatia, Ireland. Where I'm not sure exactly where you are, but it's an international
Wherever
approach.
the beer is cheap.
Well, tokens have no borders.
Right, right.
So that's a good question, Alex.
Hmm.
Does these tokens have borders?
I don't think so. No, tokens don't have borders. The approaches are different. Like the trustless approach from Baraf is different from the community approach from Thomas. But still, I think that is the opportunity that we have, so that we can tap into multiple resources to make financing money more widely available to people.
And I think just to step in there, one of the missions for de facto was to ensure that businesses could access finance wherever it is, and for investors to be able to access businesses that they want to finance. So open up opportunities, democratization, if the big word that everyone throws around, democratization of financing, right, for investors and for businesses.
So, and in practice, does that mean that my invoice then is like, or basically the invoice that I send out can possibly be funded by any investor anywhere in the world?
Yes. So if you look at traditional markets, what you'll find is that liquidity just escapes from those markets. So many years ago, we did a lot in Latin America, and you could see the big banks withdrawing from there, and the local banks didn't have enough liquidity to actually finance their local businesses. What we're trying to say is that, well, there's no need for that. You can do cross-border payments using stablecoin, not having to worry about where your liquidity sits.
How does that work? Because I used to factor all my invoices all the time, and that was great because I needed that liquidity. But if something went wrong with that customer, of course the bank would immediately, take it out of the advance. How does that work if I have a token that's somewhere out there, across the ocean with some investor that I don't know? If there's a dispute on that invoice, how does that work?
So there's still the same principles of traditional finance apply, right? So if you've got a situation, well, obviously you're still doing KYC, KYB on the asset originators as well as the investors. So it's not completely Wild West out there for us. But the thing is that we've also got mechanisms in place that as you go through the invoice funding lifecycle, obviously the invoices are debtor approved in the first place. If disputes come along, there's trade credit insurance that sits there alongside kind of dispute mechanisms. So, for example, if you look at one of the clients that, one of the I'll say clients, but one of the companies on the platform that works with us, Console Freight, they use trade finance, they use a platform to fund that, and they actually hold the inventory. So if there is a dispute, then they're able to use the inventory as collateral to pay off the debts.
Erik, what like it all sounds so good. What are the challenges?
Look, if you the process just now described by Ralph, what digital ledger technology, blockchain, will add to that is that you have an independent risk scoring mechanism and reputation scoring. Whereas now you want to invoice finance your invoices, you go to you have to rely on some third party that rates you and decides on what percentage you're going to pay. And if you have all your invoices registered on the blockchain and all your payments and the payment behavior is registered on the blockchain, you get reputation scores that are completely independent. And you don't have to rely on these third parties. The only thing that you have to have is volume to be able to create these reputations, because else without volume, no reputation.
Thomas, how does that work for you, volume? So
Yeah, volume is very important, and what we are doing is we are trying to bring in the mechanisms, the instruments that allow communities to rely on themselves instead of external liquidity sources. So there are huge reserves of liquidity inside the community, but communities are not aware of this. So we are doing this in Slovenia for the past 30 years. In the best year in Slovenia, the local companies saved 7.5% of GDP as a result of using this system. So it's a relatively large reserve of untapped liquidity. But to access it, businesses have to rely on each other. They have to collaborate to use this source of liquidity. And actually using systems like described before, like factoring and outside liquidity in combination with the collaborative practices is beneficial to everyone. So by clearing invoices among themselves, businesses diminish their reliance on outside liquidity, and this is then described as a liquidity saving. What happens in the communities is that the risk in the community is lowered, and this enables the outside financiers to easier access this market, to offer more products because it's less risk in the community. So, and this is again collaborative effort. So both businesses, real economy and financial industry collaborating in making things better.
Erik, you are captain of the Invoice Token Group. What is the Invoice Token Group currently doing?
We're I'd say that we're in the last stage of finalizing a white paper, and I think the input that we get from the tables later on today will be used again to, well, add to the white paper or modify the white paper. And then once that white paper is in a final concept phase, I would call it like that, it will go out to all the stakeholders that we identified in the system, the tax authorities, the debt collectors, everybody who is in that arena, and we ask for input and comments on that. So there will be a request for comments, and that will be sent out somewhere mid-December, I guess, that we finalize that, and then it gets back to us. There's also I'm the captain of the group. We have De facto in there. We have ABN AMRO in there. We get Erasmus University in there, and a number of other players in there that all view at that white paper from their own perspective, and that's very interesting to see if we get a holistic view on what the invoice token should be.
So it seems to me for adoption, because is this being used yet? Is de facto live? How many companies are doing this? Where are we in terms of adoption? Are we just another talking group, or are we actually doing stuff? 2Tokens is not a talking group, right? So So my question is, are we actually doing this?
Yes. So I mean, de facto, we've been live for a year now. You can go online, you can see the assets that have been funded through our centrifuge pool. We've also been working on funding through our own mechanism. So this is something that will launch towards the end of the year, but we were already kind of internally funded. I think last month was $1 million worth of invoice assets. And so, yeah, this is very much live for us. We're there.
So
and
you're
doing it.
live and nobody knows that you're live and tokens are underneath and you don't even tell anybody, right?
No, we stay underground and make sure no one hears about us.
Yeah,
No, so I mean, if you just to be clear, I am the tech lead. So our vaulted leader Alejandro has been at pretty much every single crypto event I think of the last 6 months. So, this is something that we know all of us have come from this trade finance background, and we're passionate. I hate to use that word, but we're passionate about getting this done and done right. And I think 2Tokens here is a great opportunity for us to create a standard that can drive interoperability globally, right?
Yeah, because how does that work? Because you have a token on a de facto platform. ABN AMRO have their own ABN AMRO token. Well, you don't do anything with an exchange yet, no. But suppose you did.
The invoice
Is an NFT.
right, exactly. We were working on this before the term NFT existed, actually. Now we call it an NFT. The invoice is an NFT, and what happens is that you have these assets on one platform and liquidity on the other, so you have to be able to bridge between different blockchains and different solutions to be able to tap into liquidity wherever it is and wherever it is needed. And it's the same for what Thomas is doing. So you can only do what's in your range within your own community, and then if you need more, you have to go outside.
Okay. And I think we're almost reaching the end of this session. But before we finish it up, we have this whole room with a lot of brains.
We have
in
a lot
it.
of people watching too online.
And we have a lot of people watching online. But what would you like to get out of this session for the Invoice Token project? If we can just go by all three of you, what would be your ideal picture? What is the question you would like to have answered during this session?
You go first, Thomas.
I would like to raise the awareness that this is a viable option. So making NFTs out of invoices and putting them on blockchain. So I'm actually working for Informal, which is our philosophy is making internet of blockchains. So the connectivity of blockchains is our business. And tapping the liquidity sources all over the blockchain arena is this is the area we can open.
Okay, Beres?
I'd like to see more meat on the why. So I think I know why we're doing this, and it'll be interesting to see why everyone else thinks, what the value is of what we're doing here. So that's my...
And Erik?
Yeah, I think I already said that. So the input we get from these tables, we use into finalizing, making the concept of the white paper better than it already is.
But is there a specific domain or area where you would like to get more input?
I think that's, I'm very pleased that Thomas is here so that we look at it from a different perspective as well. And I'm very interesting to see if there is views and opinions about inter-blockchain communication, especially on the liquidity side of things.
Okay. Well, there are two tables today, right, Alex?
I think there are, yeah.
On invoice tokens.
Yeah. There's actually
so
3 tables.
Three
Yeah,
tables. So let's go to work during the round table sessions. But first, we're going to go with the next guests.
Yeah. So what is the next best thing in democratizing finance? What do you think?
The next best thing in democratizing finance, it's adoption. It's
I would say crowdfunding.
it's adoption.
No? Adoption. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I guess they go hand in hand. Yeah. Yeah. So
Well.
that's the next item.
Yeah, that's the next item. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us at the table. And I think during the roundtable session we will get a lot more information and feedback on the invoice token. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So the next item is really your thing. It's next gen capital.
Yeah, I sometimes I'm worried that people get like they're done with me talking about this.
No,
But I feel
because
like
you do so many things, right? Gold Republic, an exchange, Bondex, digital notary, next gen capital. Where does it end?
yeah, well, but next gen capital is my main focus. That is what I really feel and want to live for, because it also, I think it has a purpose. We need to get more funding into the innovation
Well,
space.
in our fairness, 2Tokens, that was the heart of it all, right? So we were asked by the Port of Rotterdam, find a different alternative way of funding small and medium enterprise. This is what Next Gen Capital is all about, right?
Yeah.
We
So-
have another slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we also have two guests that know a lot about this topic, and one of them, Koan, has like that. That's well, actually, they're both sitting on. They're very active in this space, but Koan as a customer of such a idea or platform or tokens, I think he's willing to share today, like how they use it and bring it into practice and where they run into, etc. So, Koen, can you come up to the stage? And then we have Robin as well. Would you like to introduce Robin?
Well, Robin is, of course, the number one party in the Netherlands, at least, but even in Europe, that started with crowdfunding even before anybody had heard of it.
Exactly.
Symbit.
So, Robin, would you like to come to the table as well? There. Yeah. So ready for it. So also for you guys, we need you to be close to the mics, otherwise we won't hear you at the podcast or at the radio show. Alex, it's my favorite topic, but it's your favorite topic too.
Yeah. And what's great about this is that Startup Bootcamp is here at the table. I can't believe it. And you are putting out so many startups, so I'm sure you run into funding issues all the time.
And they too.
And as Quintus alluded to, I've had my share of startups, so I've had the nightmare of doing the road shows and being in front of VCs. So how does that work with a platform like Next Gen Capital, right? So
Yeah, but maybe before we start with that, we forgot about that in the first session, that you guys can give a small introduction for the people that don't see you right now
well,
or
and
hear you.
Quintus did that for the first session.
And that was true, yeah. So Robin, would you like to start?
Yes, please. So my name is Robin. We started with, what is now called crowdfunding back in, I think, 2009, when we were first thinking of the idea of democratizing finance. There we have it again. With the development of social media coming up and making it possible to give, let's say, or send a message to a large group of people like yourselves and ask everybody to just fund a part of a total funding request and combining that into one round. In 2011, that launched as Symbit, one of the first crowdfunding platforms in hindsight in the Netherlands, and one of the first worldwide doing this with solely equity, so risk capital. And recently we are acquired by Seedblink, which is a from origin Eastern European player, which is in the end doing the same what Symbit does, and that's offering a platform for start and scale ups to raise from a large pool of investors. And we add on a layer now that we combine this with more institutionalized capital. So we also have experienced investors aboard who can steer the company into being successful, because that's of course somewhat of a challenge if you have a large group of smaller investors to get the right input, to get the right steering, and that's what we try to combine now.
Okay,
Wow.
and go on.
Koen van Ovak, I'm the global MD of Startup Bootcamp, and we invest in startups at large scale. So we invest every year in around 350, 450 startups with a portfolio in the thousands now. So to your point, it's a play at scale. But also investing in startups, young technology companies with high potential of scale, has always been a very exclusive game. Has always been a game for investors that have $1 million to put $1 million extra to put in more risk assets such as startups. And we are in a mission in the last 2 years. Startup Bootcamp is already 12 years in the market. It's a Dutch company and the third largest startup accelerator in the world. So it's a hidden Dutch treasure. But we are in a mission for the last 3 years on how can we make this more democratic. Because everybody knows the success stories of the people that invest early on Google or Facebook and so on. But it's hard to get into the cap table early on of a Facebook, a Google, and so on if you don't have a lot of spare capital. And then together with Marlene, and we are in this mission to democratize startup investment.
And Next Gen Capital.
Yeah.
All right. So for you, Alex, what does that mean to you?
To me, it means that you open up a whole world, to your company, which in a way is what Symbit was doing in 2009. But now, you open it up to, investors that are qualified, and not only that, you open up a market so that people can trade the equity that they have in the startup. And of course, we tokenize it, and we talk about tokens, and so we take the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
That was Next Gen Capital to me.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and that's why I think it's such a good starting point from where we also started with Startup Bootcamp. So for the people that don't know, we funded 2 programs of Startup Bootcamps portfolios already, and are currently in the midst of the 3rd program. And what the nice thing about it is, the first program was funded approximately 3 years ago,
2019.
which was a program that had equity in 30 startups. So as an investor, you would invest in a bucket of 30 startups. And that was the first accelerator that went publicly IPO'd. We did the next one a little bit, I think a year and a half later, and then Cohen came. And then, I think Startup Bootcamp is already ambitious, but Cohen's ambition level is like, it's even higher than that. And that challenges me, at least, to look at things and think differently. Because Cohen said, forget 30 startups, I want to have 90 startups. And I thought, like, yeah, okay, 90 startups, then we'll do 90 startups. And then from there on, we went into the space of, okay, let's really democratize it. Instead of, we had tickets before that of 37,500 euros and 25,000 euros. That's still not democratizing this type of capital. We need to go smaller, and now people can invest in the portfolio of Bolt Action. That is what is currently running, starting from 100 euros. That's nice. It's kind of a fund like. You have 90 startups in a bucket, 90 times 8% in each startup. You diversify your risk. You can trade it on an exchange, etc., etc. And then this mister comes back with a new plan. Would you like to share it?
Yeah,
Can you share it?
I can't, but now I will. Yeah, because now if you put all the programs that we listed, that we put on the exchange for investors to indirectly have access to early stage investment, now we have in total 150 startups divided over 3 programs. But we always list an SPV, a special purpose vehicle that holds the equity of the startups, but that also limits us. So what we are going to create is, in one sort of environment, over the next 8 years, we are going to add 100,000 startups.
100,000
Yes.
startups.
Yes, and there's a way. So then the investors, average, small, big investors, can have a participation, not in one startup, and then the risk is also very high that one startup might not work, but spread their risk over, as the years go by, 100,000 ventures. So also the probability of hitting a big one is very high.
Should increase.
Yeah.
Should increase, yes.
So 100,000 startups, Robin, what do you think about that?
I think it's ambitious, because I think that it's also interesting to see what the focus of the kind of startups would be. Because of course there are a lot of startups, and there are also a lot of ones which you don't want to have in this 100,000. So the 100,000 should not necessarily be the goal. It just should be the goal to have a really nice
to
spread
100,000,
network,
yes.
and then see how far you can get. But you need to aim high in order to get to it at first place. So yeah, I encourage it.
Yeah.
And then you say, like, okay, we're not gonna, well, we currently fund the programs that have the startups in it, but you take it a step further as well.
Yeah,
from
that
that
it's not
perspective.
only the initial, because usually what Startup Bootcamp does is that we do the initial, we are usually the first investors that believe in that startup, and then usually our investors tend to do the follow-up rounds. That's their strategy with us. But this time we are going not only to do the first investment, but we're also, for the ones that qualify, do the follow-up rounds as well on behalf. So that means that even though we already create quite some return by being just the first investor, by being able to not dilute and keep our equity slightly intact, we're able then to increase that even further. So we'll do the follow-up rounds as well.
So this is a numbers game. We all got that, right? So
The
if you
problem-
have
the-
out of 100 startups, maybe one becomes a...
The problem with the concept of numbers game is that it sounds almost like gambling. And it's a probability game for sure, because you never know where the innovation space will happen, if a pandemic or a world war or something happens tomorrow. However, if it's just a numbers game, it implies that there is no support. It implies that there is
That was
no...
my question, yeah.
And there's no screening.
And
I
there's
would
no
say even.
screening,
Yeah.
there's no support, there's no follow-up, that you just throw the money and
can
hope
you
for something
scale
to happen.
to 100,000
Yeah.
companies program management? Because that's what it is, right?
Yes, that's what it is. But
Wow.
with technology, infrastructure, good hubs, we're in 22 different cities spread across the world. And with good technology, good partners, and a good village, because it takes a village to help founders succeed, yeah, we can.
Robin, you already mentioned, like, okay, but how do you have 100,000 startups, how do people want to invest in these startups? Because they might be, I don't know, there could be startups in software, it could be startups in deep tech, it is all different kinds of backgrounds. What kind of solution do you think that we could figure out
To get to the 100,000, you mean? Or
I don't know, to make sure, how do you bucket these assets?
Well, I think that first and utmost, it's important that most people who are doing startup investing are doing this because they have some sort of an experience into a vertical, into an industry, or being an entrepreneur themselves. So I think that they tend to invest in something they like, they know, and they can relate with. So they can also feel, let's say, somewhat in control, even though the fact that if they are early on into a startup, they are mostly out of control, but they only realize usually after a couple of years. But I think that this is something really important, that they feel they have a connection with the startups they invest in. So one of the most important things there is not only listing the startups, getting them funded, but also ask the startups to do something in return, to keep the people informed, to keep them enthusiastic, because then it will roll over and people will get more motivated, and in the end they will invest again because they like what they see. That's, I think, really important.
So, because we need to wrap up, I think what is important to mention, you keep on asking, Marleen, what's going on with the Next Gen Capital working group? And
Well, it took a lot of your time to get your approvals.
it took a lot of time to get our approvals, definitely. But Next Gen Capital, where we have the vertical, which is in fact a virtual fund, will be applied to these 100,000 startups. And to answer your question, Robin, like, how do you make it insightful? How do you create certain verticals, certain teams, certain buckets of assets? And that is where I love the ambition level of Startup Bootcamp, because the next round will not be into the funding will not go into an SPV, into a program. No, it will go directly into the startups itself. Meaning that you will get all different equity, different kinds of equity on an exchange. And from there on, you can invest and choose, okay, how do I create my own vertical or my own virtual fund? So this is hard work. It's ongoing.
It's very
we keep on
innovative.
developing. We use tokenization to tag assets, to be able to slice and dice. Because, for example, you could have an impact program, but that also has a healthcare startup in it. So how do you get the healthcare startup equity out of that vertical part? So yeah, it's a journey.
Sure.
It's a work in progress as well. And yeah, I think to round up, last comment or thing that you would like to get out of this session or feedback?
That I think tech and startups tend to yield the best returns in the financial space in relatively comparison to other assets. And I think one big mission of smart, capable people with a platform must be how to bring the best returns of the market into bigger crowds. And if we can do that, I think that is a fantastic journey to go through the next years.
Okay.
Maybe before you go to the last roundup in this, I thought of breaking in, but there's a question that actually came out of online, and I think it would be very fitting to this part. I think it's a short question, and maybe see who would like to answer it. It's from Sheldon, and he says, how do we overcome the current negative impact of failed trading platforms? And I assume that people have followed the news somewhat on that. So there is some impact and maybe some image impact. Is that knowledgeable? And maybe Robin, since it's your turn to round up, maybe you want to hop into this question.
I think it's at this point in time, the negativity which comes from this is not, let's say, speak for myself, directly affecting startup funding and let's say the platforms acting in there. I think they're still, it's not hyped because it was hyped a couple of years ago, but it's getting to a decent form now where it's really a stable form of fundraising next to other alternatives. And I think that what I would like to get out of it, to see a roundup, is that it's not a source next to other alternative fundings, but it's really embedded, and to get the whole ecosystem into one, let's say, fundraising platform. So not only VCs, angels, crowd, whatever you name it, it's all equity, it's all risk capital, we're all there to help. We should combine the powers of all of them to get the best returns in the market and to democratize it also for the smaller ones who can now not access. So that's what I would want to take out of this all.
Well done.
What's going on with Next Gen Capital? What can we expect? Because Next Gen Capital, is one of the core components of 2Tokens. We are going to a next TRL level.
Yeah.
Development is really speeding up.
Yeah.
What can we expect, Marleen?
Yeah, where we are in the process is we just received our approval of the AFM to be able to proceed with the new structure that we basically presented to them, because it's not a fund and it's not a direct investment in one company, but it has a lot of characteristics of a fund, and it also has a lot of characteristics of investing in a direct company. So where we are right now, we've learned a lot from listing 3 programs of Startup Bootcamp. For the people that want to learn a little bit more about it, you can still invest with €100 to experience how does that work. The next step is creating the vertical, which is in legal shape already ready, and then make sure that it fits with the program of a accelerator, in this case Startup Bootcamp. And then you have to think about,
right?
yeah,
it's
and
not it's the accelerator of the world, right?
but it could be any accelerator that does this. And then you have to think about building a two-sided market where it becomes really interesting, because on one side, if you don't have assets, then you don't have investors, and if you don't have investors, you don't have assets. So it's a chicken and egg story. And we're currently really looking into the portfolio of Startup Bootcamp, because Startup Bootcamp has equity participation in already a portfolio of 1,500 startups. So that could potentially mean that one side of the market is covered, and that means that we would need to bring in that equity into.
So that would be like stage 2 follow-on funding for the existing 1,500.
Exactly, and that would be a start. And then from there on, you would have at least assets on the platform. You can find investors, and then you can continue by raising capital for new startups.
And so Next Gen Capital is great for democratizing finance, right? It's great for individuals who want to, put in €100. But so how can we make sure that, big investors, institutional investors, are not going to,
big investors also participate in Startup Bootcamp.
From everything from top to bottom. There's people with €100, there's people, corporate venture capital, private equity, and so on.
Yeah.
So it seems to me we should do a roadshow next year.
Yeah, I'm quite sure that not only next year, but probably for the coming 10 years, we'll be in
to the 100.
I
guess you need a lot.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
That's it. Thank you.
I'll help you with the roadshow. I hear you go to nice places.
I hear that you are very good at giving.
Yeah, and 100,000, you're not just can find them here in the Netherlands, right?
No, and we can't.
Maybe we have some within the European network which might be able to help as well.
Exactly. So.
Yeah, because talking about that, we're doing, this is a Dutch initiative here in Amsterdam. That's where all the exchanges started, in the East Indies company. 400 years ago. Is this the start of something new in Europe? Do we have a European ambition?
Yeah, I believe we do, but it's a worldwide ambition because the startups of Startup Bootcamp are over the whole world. So the only thing is that it can only be offered to European investors.
Yeah, and I
So,
think that that's a good start because Europe needs to unite in order to really make a
Yeah.
fist in
Yeah.
terms of technology startups and startups in general. So that's the good start, and then eventually it will evolve.
I think we have a new working group here.
Yeah,
Yeah?
Nice.
and we need to wrap up.
You do?
Yes.
We do. Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you, guys.
gentlemen.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
So, the next one is, that's also yours, Digital Notary. No, it's ours. Yeah. It's great because Digital Notary, you're the first one who actually took a working group and put it into production and people can start using it. So that's what Digital Notary is to you.
Well, not only me.
No, well, let's have Quintus at the table.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody knows Quintus. He made a great introduction here. Quintus, please sit. Quintus is the captain of the Digital Notary working group. And I've come to know him as very enthusiastic, has a great drive. He's also the Share Council founder and CEO. And give a big hand of applause to our dagvoorzitter, here at the table, Quintus.
And Quintus is not going to be on his own. Can Luis and Quintus, sorry, Quintus, Misko. Sorry, I'm recovering from yesterday. Misko and Luis also come to the table. Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you for coming all the way from Luxembourg, right?
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Yeah. Did you take a train or did you fly? Or?
Unfortunately, I took a plane. I know it's not too sustainable in regard to the blockchain company I work for, but it's the most efficient still. So
Yeah, good.
Would you
Misko.
guys like to? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you like to start with all three of you to give a short introduction for the people that are also listening into the?
yeah, sure. So thank you for being here. My name is Louis. I'm in charge of adoption-related questions in Benelux for Nomadic Labs, and Nomadic Labs is essentially the lab research for Tezos.
Cool. Let's go.
Yeah, and my name is Mieszko. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a CEO at Thanks Network, and we help audiences, our customers, to connect to their audience online by using tokens. So why? Why do you use tokens and not other means? We see that the new generations, Y and Z, right? They are less susceptible to advertising, and they trust friends more than they do authority. And this allows us to really build new experiences, right? And it also ties into the community, which is also on our slide today. And we do this for big customers, United Nations, but also for individual creators, for example. So, yeah,
Wow.
and
Wow.
Providing the infrastructure, right? So.
Yeah, great.
Quintus Willemsen, founder of Share Council, and Share Council is there for employee participation, making every employee co-owner of the business they work for, with a mission, and that mission is redividing capital wealth in our society. Because we believe that if every employee is co-owner of the business they work for, we have a better spread of ownership of the economy, hence a better spread of capital. Might be something to think of.
So that's also democratizing finance.
Very
way,
much so,
very
and
much
very much going in line with community building. It very much goes in line with financing companies overall. And we have a lot of experience making sure that companies have a wide variety in financing, because if someone starts with employee participation at our site, they might, for whatever reason, end up on an exchange to be publicly listed and actually funding over there.
And okay, so let's see where the common parts are between the three of you. So would you like to get started, Louis?
Yes. Well, if the question is related to adoption, what we do is to essentially create ecosystems with different layers where potential users potential user will be able to connect with relevant players. So that might be a technical integrator, for example, for them to help in regard to development on chain, writing smart contracts, things like that. Then we have consulting companies. The goal is essentially the same, to support the growth and the development of the said company or the project order. And we are also connecting with VCs, incubator programs, as a way to have a complete ecosystem where someone can just deploy its solution in a very easy way on the Tezos ecosystem.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think in our case, so we are like the middleware, right? So you provide really the base infrastructure, the base layer, and we make it really accessible for companies to quickly deploy their solutions, right? So that's what we actually do, and we started actually very flexible. So like we were like digital assets for everybody. We've been doing this for 2 years, but we also discovered that this might be a bit too broad. So now we're like focusing it down to loyalty programs. Also focusing on things like NFT memberships, right? Paid loyalty, because we see, you know, when building a community, it's okay to charge money, right? To fundraise. Actually, it leads to much more engaged participants, much more engaged people, more ownership in those communities. So I'm really excited about supporting those use cases and doing it. You know, people can launch it in days instead of building it in weeks or months if they start from scratch. You know, so we're like the middle layer.
And you as the top layer. So
I want to say then we probably end up at the end of it, and I think we do. We only use blockchain as a toolkit for the rest of our system, and we only have one product. You can become co-owner of the company you work for.
Okay. What can you share about the Digital Notary Group?
Yeah, because what can you share? Because it was awfully quiet in that working group for a year and a half. But now, in hindsight, it was all, you know, hush hush because you guys were building, right?
Both, yes. I think it's interesting for everybody in the room to know where it more or less derived from. And Digital Notary Group was a get-together between NXchange and Share Council because we both ran into problems of setting up companies and setting up structures to co-own companies. For Share Council, that was very much from the foundation point of view, setting up trust foundations, and from NXchange was very much from basically the liability company point of view. And we just both ran into the bureaucracy, the Dutch bureaucracy of how to set up entities, and that was just. It was so obvious that needed to be solved in some kind of way, and to be completely standardized. And yeah, we did hush about it a little bit. There's basically 2 big initiatives that came out of it, and the beautiful one is on the NXchange side that within 24 hours you can now set up a limited liability company, which is already be able to be traded. And on Share Council you can immediately now fully set up your trust foundation within no time, completely standardized, and start sharing the ownership of your company in a legally bounded way.
Sharing, as in sharing on a bulletin board, not trading on an exchange.
Yeah, in our case, it's not an exchange. It's absolutely sharing. Someone can buy into to a company. And yes, can sell it to someone else, but there's no bid and leave offer. If you want to.
So your target audience of companies that want to involve their employees, family companies, and how have them participate. And it's so much easier if you can just you have a token now, you can participate instead of having to go keep up a register and the stock and. Right?
It's basically we take everything. Yeah, we take everything out of hand of making an employee co-owner of your company, and our audience is small, medium-sized enterprises. There's 2 reasons for that. One is it's the biggest group of enterprises in Europe, and it's also the biggest group of employees in Europe. It's 137 million people working for small, medium-sized enterprises in Europe. Which are good for about 80% of the European economy. I do have to say we extended the small medium-sized enterprise group a little bit because we go up to 500 employees, and some Europe says at 250 employees you become too big for small, medium-sized enterprise.
So I'm curious. Do the people that get those tokens, the employees, do they perceive it as being, oh wow, we're now a shareholder and we're participating, or is it just a thank you and?
The vast majority that uses our platform in that, and mind you, right now we have about 3,500 users on our platform. We have about 350 million euros divided over 3,500 users now, employees, and they really become co-owner. And I do have to say, we advise the companies that get onto our platform on the way how do you do that co-ownership. And how do you push as far as you can to really get that feeling of co-ownership from other people as well? And we're in all honesty, we're still a social enterprise. We want to do this to divide the capital better, and we want to do it because people can truly become co-owner. We know that companies use our platform because it delivers all kind of financial benefits for them, lower sick leave and higher return, better economic stability, all those kind of things. But our reason to do this, to make the platform so fantastically capable of doing this, our reason is that mission.
Is Nomadic Labs socially inclined? Do you have those social projects like Share Council does?
We do have quite some social use cases. Well, tech for good, I would say. It's not something that is very much developed at the moment yet, because as the industry is slowly evolving and getting more and more diversified when it comes to the variety of projects that we have. Initially, it was more DeFi and NFT came, but we have more and more projects where there is a willingness from the users to try and do something good by using blockchain. I think we came to a point in the industry where people really understand what are the benefits of blockchain for their infrastructure to run a business, and as such, as the understanding is increasing over time, more and more people are exploring different possibilities to do things like that. So we do work with companies that are involved in ESG related questions, tech for good, and other related matters.
So do you focus on the end value, or do you focus on developing the technology?
On our end, we are really focusing on developing the technology because that will be essentially the job of Nomadic Labs as a company. So we are pushing for recurring updates on the network, and then as we are public infrastructure, users are essentially free to do whatever they want on our blockchain. So if they want to do something that is very hardcore DeFi, they can do it. If they want to do something that is more social ESG related, they can also do it, and we would gladly accompany them in doing so.
What infrastructure you use, Quintus?
We use Stellar.
Stellar, okay.
Yeah.
Mieszko, you do loyalty, which I think has a similar purpose as to giving others equity. Can you share some experience on like some use cases that we can learn from, where you say like, okay, this is really like how it should be applied?
Yes, so I think the future of loyalty programs, especially for brands as well, is to build partnership and ecosystems, right? So that's what we've seen is loyalty was very transactional up till now. So if you go to the Albert Heijn, big retailer, grocery shop in the Netherlands, you get points, right? And you basically can exchange them back for money. That's it. So it's really a transactional relationship, and that only goes so far. I don't really get excited when I cash my points. I'm not, maybe you do, but it's a kind of boring experience. But the next level, and actually what the research also shows is that what the next generation of digital natives, but also crypto native people expect is cross-brand and cross-marketing experiences, right? And things like NFTs, maybe tokens in general, can provide this because the open nature of this technology allows it to be used in many places. So suddenly you can use a membership of 2Tokens to get access to the Web Summit or something like this, right? Which now, this is a ticketing use case, but you get my point. This cross relationship, now it gets much more excited. Now I might tell my friends, hey, I'm a member of 2Tokens, and it allows me a discount at the Web Summit. Now that's cool, right? So that's worth talking about. So these are the things we enable for our customers, And we have a couple of specific examples of how that looks, but maybe that's for another day.
Very, very cool.
Well, what is interesting, because remember year one, we had 3 use cases. We had next-gen capital, electronic bill of lading, and we had the 2-token.
Exactly. And we have some experience at the table.
Yeah, what happened?
What happened?
Corona happened. That's what
Corona happened.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen now?
I think Misko is going to help us, right?
Happy to, always.
So we should dust off the white paper that we created with Rabobank and the whole team of 2.
Well,
you had a look at it. What is your first comment?
Great ambition. 2 years ago, this was really visionary, and so happy that we are executing on it now. Excellent. I think there's a bright future for it.
So in our board, in an executive board, we have some people that are lawyers, and the first thing they said, before we do anything, make sure it's legit.
Which you obviously checked.
Yeah, of course. I checked Misko. So.
I think we should go to the next slide, right?
Just, the next slide.
Because
you ready for it?
Yeah, I think when you talk about something, you actually have to bring it into practice, and that's what I love about you as well.
Eat your own dog food.
Eat your own dog food. Yeah. So we have reintroduced the 2-token. Yeah. And we just heard from Erik that we can connect different uses of this 2-token together. So can you share a little bit on your ideas about that?
So to be fair, I was not in that working group, and Iris worked with you. So the whole team has been working on this, but we are kicking it off in January. But now we are launching the program, and you can basically register for the 2-token now. And,
yes.
And scan to participate.
Exactly.
And what you do is you not only support us, you support the group, and everybody on the table has this little QR code. So take your iPhone and scan that QR code.
And before you do that, I think we should share what you get for it. You get access to all the events, you can vote with it, and you get the first digital notary BV.
Yeah.
So one person out of this group actually gets a clean BV.
Not just this group, also people from...
Anyone who has a token can be drawn at the end of this session. It can be drawn out of the thumb, at the head. And that person will get a digital notary BV. So, and I know that there are a lot of... I know
we have a notary here, so the notary can actually do the draw.
Well, that's a good point.
Good point.
No, but it's actually it's worth 2,500 euros.
Yeah.
Because you will not only get the BV, you get the whole environment with it, where you can experience the digital notary as how we developed it and how we have set it up. So I think that there are a lot of entrepreneurs here. By buying the 2-token, you support the 2Tokens group, but you also can possibly get your digital notary BV, of which we later on share more information of.
Yeah. And Misko, maybe you can shed some light on what we're going to be doing. We discussed it briefly this morning.
Yeah, so I think, this is the first step, and it also ties to membership, fundraising, things I talked about, community, so that's great. Things we kind of skipped, all these tokens, they need to be kept somewhere, right? So custody, I think that's one of the areas that needs attention. Mm-hmm. Like for the end user experience, it's still something that's quite rough. So I'm not sure where your users keep their tokens. But it's easy to lose. It's you have to pay gas fees, and I think that's the exciting thing we will be solving for 2Tokens as well as an organization, is that we will provide smart contract wallets, and it's like easy recovery, even easy to keep your membership, show it to others, show off your NFT. I think that's really the end user experience is where I'm excited about.
Wow.
Okay, we need to wrap up.
You always say that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Are we having a party or something?
No, we want to keep the speed into it, because we have not only 3 round tables for invoice token, but we also have 4 round tables for the digital notary, where we hopefully get even more feedback, more input for the products, so we can improve them and we can make them better. What would you like to
Famous
what would
last
you
words. Yeah.
hope to get out of the roundtable session of the Digital Notary today?
Yeah. What I hope to get out of Digital Notary as a whole is that basically it becomes the new norm, that you can indeed within 24 hours have your own limited liability company, which if you want to is even publicly traded, and that this kind of movement becomes available for everybody, not only for the rich and famous, not only for those who studied deeply to understand how this all works and how the financial world is structured, but anybody interested in really being able to build a company, to share it with other people and get it up and running, who just has a good idea and actually can take off. And I think that democratizes way more, not only finance by itself, but way more the economy, hence our society. And I hope that everybody who thinks about digital notary today can somewhat try in their mind to find a way to steer in this direction.
Okay, thank you. Misko, what's
Wow,
your...
that's hard to top. So, I'm really looking for adoption as well, right? So please scan the QR code and get signed up. So
We second that, huh?
wonder how many people do. So, that's interesting, like a field test for me as well. I'm also interested in like the legal aspects of it, right? We are a startup, move very quickly, but it also needs to be done properly, right? So happy to connect about that.
Louis.
Well, I guess I would double down on what you just said, adoption. If you want to explore some infrastructure to build your solution, I'll be glad to assist you. And I can also introduce you to some of the solutions that we have on Tezos that could actually be an interesting ad hoc piece of technology for the different working groups that you will be tackling today.
This sounds great. We should spend some time. Yeah,
gladly.
Well,
Super
great.
happy again with this session.
You are, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So thank you guys for being here. I think we're now going to have a short break and then start with the roundtables.
I think so. Thank you.
And don't forget to scan the QR code, please. Thank you.